I request everyone to concentrate on the class. Many people are pinging me in the chat about adding the group in WhatsApp. I have already intimated my mobile number. I will once again tell 82487 You can ping me on WhatsApp. I will add in new group which I have created now in WhatsApp for promotion exclusively. And one person has already shared the Telegram link also. So please, while you are in the session, please concentrate on the class. Whatever you wanted to ping, you put me a WhatsApp message 8 on my mobile number 82487 83119. With this, I think we will start the class. Sir is ready with the PowerPoint and question paper. Sir, over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So it's 7:30. We will try to wind up the session by 9 o'clock. Okay, now we are going to continue with the test paper 3. The test paper 3, as we discussed yesterday, it is having around, if I am correct, it is having around 123 questions. So yesterday we stopped before commencing the Garnishi order. Before that, that is question number 41, which is in front of you. There were some doubts were that is raised yesterday, that is after the class was over. So question number 41, your branch is having a deposit account in the name of a minor represented by father as guardian. There is no nomination in this account. The minor dies. To whom the money to be given? So there was a confusion, or there was a little, doubts with regard to guardian and legal heir. So you should keep in mind both are different. So the legal heirs may be guardian, but all guardians need not be legal heirs. That aspect you should keep in mind. So I will just brief it again. So your branch is having a deposit account in the name of a minor represented by father as a guardian. Okay, he is a guardian. There is no nomination to this account. The minor dies. To whom the money to be given? Suppose I told you a minor account represented by guardian can have nomination. The guardian will give the nomination form, DA1 form, he will sign and give. In that case, if the minor dies, the money will go to the nominee. Okay. On the other hand, if there is no nomination in the account, if the minor dies, the money, whether it has to be, account should be closed and given to father who has acted as a guardian or not. So now, after I told you, whenever there is an account, the money in that account belong to that person. It is a minor's account. So father is only as a guardian operating the account. The money belongs to the minor. Okay. I told you in the case of a joint account A and B, the money belongs to both of them. The operation conditions may be anything, either a survivor or number one or survivor, or operation by that is a mandate holder, like that. So here what you have to keep in mind, it is operated by the guardian. If the minor dies, the money should go to the legal heir. Now the next question is, who are all the legal heirs? Okay, before coming to the legal heir, let us see who are all the guardians. First, who are all the guardians? In the case of Hindu, all of you know that is the first guardian will be the father. First guardian will be the father. And if the father is not there, we will go for mother. But as per the Supreme Court verdict, that is, if you are not able to take father as the guardian due to some reasons, obvious reasons, then when father is alive, then mother also can be a guardian. Okay. In the case of an Hindu, father is normally the guardian. If when he is alive, after his death, mother will enter into a guardian. Okay. If due to some reason, if father cannot be taken as a guardian, then mother will be the guardian. Mother can be guardian when father is alive. Suppose after the demise of both parents, that is father and mother, who will be the guardian? If there is a will written by them, then the person named in the will, he will become the guardian. Okay, first natural guardian, parents. After the natural guardian, the testamentary guardian will come. What is meant by testamentary guardian? The persons named in the will of the deceased is called the testamentary guardian. If there is no will, or even if there is a will, no testamentary guardian is mentioned there, then who will be the guardian for the minor till he attains majority? Court will appoint a guardian. Suppose if people go to the court will appoint a guardian. So first we have that is natural guardian. Then we will have testamentary guardian. Then if there is no testamentary guardian, then we will have legal guardian. There are three types of guardians. Okay, that is in the case of a Hindu or Christians or other community other than Muslims. Coming to the religion of Muslim, who are all the natural guardians? So I will make it very clear to you. Any question asked, you should not miss it there. Guardian. Normally, in the case of a Muslim law, father is the guardian. Okay, father is the natural guardian. If father is not there, then will of the father. If the father has written any will, whomsoever mentioned in the will of the father, he will become the guardian. First father, then that is testamentary guardian. Father's will, anybody is there, it will come. If the father has not mentioned anybody in the will, then father's father will come. So always we are under the impression after father, it is immediately father's father is the guardian in the Muslim religion. No, it is not so. You can refer the death claim manual updated till 31/3/2020. First, father is the guardian. After the father, the testamentary guardian, that is a person named by the father in the will be the guardian. If he is not there, father's father will become the guardian. If father's father is not there, then whether the father's father written any will, in that anybody is mentioned, so that person will be the guardian. If no will is written by the father, then court will appoint the legal guardian. So that is with regard to the Muslim religion. That is with regard to guardians. But the question is here, question number 41, your branch is having a deposit account in the name of your minor represented by father as the guardian. After the minor dies, to whom the money belong to? After the money guardian of that is minor dies, the money will go to the legal heirs. Okay, father may be a legal heir or he may not be a legal heir. That depends upon to the religion to which the minor belongs. For example, in the case of a Hindu, if the minor is a baby girl, in the case of an Hindu, if the minor is a baby girl, then that is the share, 100% share should go to the legal heir who is mother. In the case of a Hindu religion, if the minor is a girl, then the legal heir will be mother. So father is a guardian, but legal heir will be the mother. The entire money in the account after the demise of the minor, when there is no nomination, will go to the mother only. That is why when an account operated by the guardian minor dies, you should not close the account and give the money to the guardian. You have to see who is the legal heir. The legal heir will vary from religion to religion. Suppose if it is in the Hindu, as per the Hindu law, if the minor is a male, minor is a boy, then the legal heir's 50% share will go to father. He will become the legal heir. Another 50% will go to the mother. Okay, like that. For all the religions, how much share should go to the legal heirs, whether father is a legal heir or mother is a legal heir or anybody is a legal heir, they call first class legal heir, second class legal heir, etc. So where it is mentioned in your death claim manual updated till 31/3/2020. Okay, keep that in mind. So now let us go to, now we are going to see today important questions on garnishee order. Okay, so question number 44, friends. Maybe you by this time you will be keeping the question paper with you, or you may seeing before you in front of the screen. So now question number 44. I think it is question number 44 we are discussing. Okay. When the attachment order and garnishee order comes together, which order has the preference? Okay, let us see the PowerPoint presentation. Then you will be able to understand, because for all levels, the questions on garnishee order will appear. So if you know the subject, 4, 5, 6 slides are there. If you understand the slide, then you will be able to answer the question. So when the garnishee order, how the garnishee order works? So I have given a small presentation. For example, let us assume Mr. A has borrowed money from Mr. B. A has borrowed money from Mr. B, but B has not repaid the amount. So A is asking, but B has refused to repay the loan. A, that is the person who has given the money, comes to know that B has deposit account with a bank X. Okay, A comes to know that B is having some deposit accounts with bank X. So what A will do, since B is not giving the money, A will approach a civil court to attach the deposit of Mr. B lying with bank X. You got my point? A has given money to Mr. B. B has not repaid the loan. A has come to know that B is having some deposit with a bank X. So A will approach a civil court asking the court authorities to attach the money of B in bank X, attach the money and give the money to A. So courts have power to issue orders in favor of A. This order is called Garnishi order. Okay, courts will issue Garnishi order. They have the power. Next slide, let us see. Sorry. So where, under which section, which act, the courts have power to issue Garnishi order? If they ask the question, you should not miss it. The provision for the court to issue Garnishi order is available in section 60 of Code of Civil Procedure 1908. Okay, the provision is available in section 60 of Code of Civil Procedure 1908. Under that, the court will issue an order favoring A. Who are all the parties to the Garnishi order? Who has issues the Garnishi order? A civil court will issue the Garnishi order. Who are all the parties to the Garnishi order? There are three parties to the Garnishi order. Who are they? They are one first person is called the judgment creditor. That is, in whose favor the court gives the verdict, he is called the judgment creditor. Here, who has given loan to B? A has given money to B, isn't it? So A, the court will say the money will be given by bank to A. So the judgment creditor, the first that is party in the Garnishi order is the judgment creditor. In this example, Mr. A will become the judgment creditor. Then the person against whom the order is issued, the Garnishi order is issued, is called the judgment debtor. Okay, here Mr. B, who has borrowed money from Mr. A and he has not repaid the loan. So Mr. B will become the judgment debtor. Then there is a concept in between, the bank is there. So bank X, in bank X, whose money is there? In bank X, Mr. B's deposit money is there. Okay, the bank in which the Mr. B is having the deposit account. The bank in which the judgment debtor is having the deposit account. Again, I repeat, the bank in which Mr. B is having the deposit account, or the bank in which the judgment debtor is having the deposit account, here bank X. Bank X is called Garnishi. Okay, judgment creditor, Mr. A, Mr. B, judgment debtor, and bank X, where the judgment debtor is having the money, is called Garnishi. Here bank X is the Garnishi. So last time they asked one question. So the Garnishi can also be called as, they are given 3 options, 4 options. Well, none of these they are given. See, here the correct answer, the correct option for that question is, you see the third point in the PowerPoint presentation, Garnishi is also known as judgment debtor's debtor. Again, I repeat, if it's just 1 minute you apply, all of you are capable, you are all knowledgeable people, you will understand. Garnishi, also known as judgment debtor's debtor. Okay, who is Garnishi here? Bank X. Who is the judgment debtor? Judgment debtor is B. So B is having deposit with bank X. Okay, what is the relationship between bank and Mr. X? So what is the relationship of bank X with Mr. B? B is having deposit with bank X, isn't it? So bank is the debtor, bank X is the debtor, B is the creditor. With regard to the relationship between the bank and the judgment debtor is, bank is the debtor and the judgment debtor is the creditor. So the Garnishi is bank X. Garnishi can also be called as judgment debtor's debtor. Okay, that question was asked. That question was asked for a level of 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. So Garnishi is also known as judgment debtor's debtor because the judgment debtor, Mr. B, is having his deposit account with bank X. The relationship between bank X and judgment debtor is, bank is the debtor, judgment debtor is the creditor between these two people. So the garnishee, bank X, can also be called as judgment debtor's debtor. Okay, that point is an additional point. It is given here last time or year before last they asked, you should know it. Then in the garnishee order, normally there will be two types of orders. First order, it is called order nishi, N-I-S-I, and the other one is order absolute. So garnishee order, there are two types of orders, order nishi and order absolute. The order nishi is a preliminary order. It may come or it may not come. Suppose they will mention there, order nishi. Okay, so what is that order nishi? So the bank will give a notice. Here, you know, A has lent money to B. Okay, B has borrowed money from A. In bank X, B is having deposit. So bank X will get an order nishi from the civil court. What they will mention? So we understand that Mr. B, who has been adjudged as judgment debtor in a civil case, we understand that he is having deposit account with you. Kindly confirm. That is called order nishi. First order will come. When the order nishi comes, what the banker is supposed to do, whether Mr. B is having any overdue loans with you, not all loans. Okay. So first you have to see whether Mr. B is having any NPA with you or any loans where installments are overdue or any ODOCC accounts where limits exceeded the, liability exceeded the limit. So you have to see both direct and indirect liability of B. If there is an overdue, first what you have to do, the deposit amounts you have to do write-off set-off. If there is a fixed deposit, you should not do write-off set-off. You have to mark a lien over there and you have to inform the court. Okay, running account like current account and SB account, you have to adjust the overdues to your overdue portion, and then you will inform the court. Yes, sir. B is having a deposit account with us, so his overdues were with us. We adjusted the overdue. The balance available in the running account is this much. He is also having an FDR. So that is, he is also having an FDR. So that FDR we will adjust to you only on maturity. Now that is the balance is available in this account is this much. You have to inform the court. So your overdues first you have to adjust from the running account. Other deposit you may mark a lien. If you are having an overdue still, then inform the court the factual position. Simultaneously, you should inform your customer. Who is your customer? The judgment debtor. B is your customer. You have to inform your customer also. At that stage, you should not remit the money to the court. So you are informed the court and you have to freeze the account. You have to freeze the debits in that account. Credits is permitted. You have to freeze the debit at that point of time in that account. Okay, freeze the debit and inform the court. Subsequent credits will come. Let us discuss about it later. Okay, then also inform the judgment debtor, that is your customer. At this juncture, you need not remit the money to the court. Then you wait for order absolute. So from the court, you will get an order absolute. So the order absolute amount will be mentioned in the order absolute. If there is sufficient amount in the order absolute, you remit that much money only to the court. Okay, from that you remit the money to that court. Okay, so if that much money is not there, whatever money is available, you remit to the court and inform your customer also. If the absolute order does not mention the amount, if the absolute order does not mention the amount, whatever amount you have freezed at the order at the time of receipt of the nishi, you have to remit to the court. Okay, so if the order does not mention the amount, you should not drag on that the order does not mention the amount, how much amount I will remit to the court. If the order does not mention the amount, the entire credit balance in his account to be remitted to the court under intimation to your customer, who is Mr. B. Order absolute, bank remits the amount to the court as per the order and informs the customer. If the amount not mentioned in the order, the entire amount to be remitted to the court and your customer also to be informed. Okay. Then, so in the case of a garnishee order, what is the relationship between the bank and the customer? So the judgment debtor is having an account. So bank is the debtor, your judgment debtor is the creditor. Okay, bank customer relationship should be debtor creditor. That is a deposit account with credit balance, current account or SB account or deposit account. So you are having the money of the debtor. So you are the debtor and he is the creditor. So the banker customer relationship in the garnishee order is debtor creditor. Bank is the debtor, customer is the creditor. Okay. So as we have shown in the write-off set-off or in lien, you just to recollect what we discussed yesterday night, by this time 24 hours back. If the loan account is in the name of A, if SB account in the name of A and B, you cannot do write-off set-off. Okay, yesterday we saw. On the other hand, if the loan account is in the name of A and B, if SB account is in the name of that is A only, so you can do the write-off setup. Yesterday we saw what we saw. If loan account is in the name of A, if the deposit account is in the name of A, if the loan account is in the name of A and deposit in the account is in the name of A and B, you should not close the deposit account and do the write-off setup to the loan account of Mr. A. It can be vice versa. Similarly, the garnishee order in the name of A. So if there is a garnishee order in the name of A, there are joint accounts in the name of A and B. You cannot attach the joint account of A and B for the order in the name of A. On the other hand, the order is in the names of A and B. Suppose if you are having a joint account of A and B, and you are also having an individual accounts of A and B, all these accounts to be attached, like your write-off set-off or lien. So the order is in the name of A, joint accounts in the name of A and B, you cannot attach, but vice versa or ulta you can do. Okay, that is with regard to one portion. Coming to your proprietorship account and the proprietor's account. As far as the garnishee order is concerned, the proprietorship account and the proprietor's account are considered to be the same. If the order comes in the proprietor account, you have to attach the proprietorship account. If the order comes in the proprietorship account, you can attach the proprietor account also. If there is a proprietor account, separate account or that. Okay, that is with regard to the proprietorship. Then, so which are all the accounts attachable under garnishee order? SB account can be attached, current account can be attached, and term deposit accounts can be attached, and credit balance in OD OCC accounts are attachable. What is the relationship between the banker and the customer when you are attaching the money? It should be bank should be the debtor, customer should be the creditor. When it is possible, only in the deposit account or credit balance in OD OCC account. So SB, current, term deposit accounts and credit balance in OD OCC accounts are attachable. And one point you should make, only if that whatever the clear balance is available, only is eligible. For example, today morning, a customer has deposited a check in the check drop box. Evening, what you will do, you'll take out the check, scan it and send it to LPC or grid, whatever account section, whatever you call. So there will be a shadow balance in that account. So that is by clearing, the amount will be there, but the total balance will be less than that, whatever amount is mentioned. That is called the clearing balance. System will not allow you to withdraw the by clearing until otherwise by tomorrow evening, the clearing section authorizes that. So suppose today evening you made a check by the balance is 25,000. So by clearing you made a credit, so 35,000, but the 10,000 is only a shadow balance. Tomorrow morning, before the clearing is regularized, tomorrow morning, if a garnishee order comes, you can attach only 25,000 because this 10,000 you cannot attach because the check may be returned. Okay, so only clear balances in this account to be attached. I will give you here one example. Suppose here I told you a customer has sent a check for collection. At that time, shadow balance you cannot attach. Suppose customer has given a check for discounting. So customer has given a check for discounting. You discounted the check and credited the money in the customer's account. The check you will send it clearing only today evening, or you may send it tomorrow morning, depending upon the clearing practice in your branch. Okay, so once you discount the check and credit to the customer's account, you bring the logic. Whose money in that account now? Once you discount the check, and credit the money in that account. Whether any shadow balance is created in that account, no. It is a clear balance. The customer may withdraw in, customer would have given a check, or customer would have sent an RTGS, or customer may withdraw the money in ATM, isn't it? Why you are debited, why you are discounted a check, you have power. That is CDB, clean demand bills, isn't it? So bills discounting. You discounted the check and credited to the customer's account. You have taken a credit decision. You have taken a credit decision and discounted. The account may become NPA. That is different. Tomorrow check may return. You don't worry about it because you have taken a credit decision. So when a check is discounted and credited in the customer's account, in that case, it is a clear balance. So at that time, if the garnish order comes, you have to attach that money. You got my point? On the other hand, if a check is sent in clearing, it is not a clear balance check. Still, the LPC regularizes the credit, so that money should not be attached. So that point I want to drive home because they asked the question like that. Okay, only clear balances are eligible. Term deposit attachable, but payment to court only upon maturity. So if there is a term deposit, yesterday somebody was, what will happen to automatic this one, etc. You make a whatever note or whatever in CBS is available for you. So at the time also you mentioned this fixed deposit we are having, you would have informed the court, but it is not yet matured. We will close the mature on maturity. We will close and remit the proceeds to you. If still the balance is not sufficient to send to the court, isn't it? So term deposits is attachable, but payment to court only upon maturity, because in between the customer, Mr. B, may approach the court and withdraw the garnish order. Okay, in that case, you need not close the deposit on maturity. You would not have paid, no? So you have to keep it with you. Okay, the next point. Account debited, token issued, but cash yet to be parted with. So let's assume you are the cashier. Customer is giving and coming, somebody is coming and giving a check. You debited the account. Supervisor has to authorize. Okay, so supervisor authorized the check of payment, debited also. Your debit is also already authorized by the supervisor, but you are not yet called the customer and given the token number. You are not yet called and parted with the money. At that time, if the garnish order comes, you have to cancel the debit entry, credit back that debit, make the debit as credit entry, because at that time the money belongs to the court. As long as the money has moved out, it has not moved out of your branch, at that point of time, if a garnish order comes, the debit entry to be that is cancelled and the money to be credited back, and the money should go to the court. Similarly, morning 9 o'clock, account sections will debit the clearings, isn't it? There is a new concept now. Morning 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, account section debits the party's account with regard to clearing check. But you know, there is a return time is that you have to inform RBI or the other banks by 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock, the check, these are all the checks we are going to return. Okay, so morning account is debited, but clearing return time is not at over. You are not informed the other branch, other bank, that this check is, we have passed the check, isn't it? So in between, if a garnish order comes, you have to cancel the debit entry and credit back, and you have to inform the other bank that the check is going to be returned. You got my point? So account debited, token issued, but cash not yet parted with. So this money belongs to the court. It should not be parted to the customer. Account debited, but clearing time for return not over. In that case also, you have to cancel the debit entry and credit back the account. Similarly, account is debited, some clearings or something is coming, so you're debiting the customer's account. You have to send the debit advice to the, that is, you are not yet dispatched the credit advice to the other end. What are the idea is, so the money or the debit advice reaches the other end. If there is a time in between a garnish order comes, the money belongs to the court. That is the idea. Okay, so that point then. Garnish accounts not attachable. Check sent in clearing, shadow balance in the account, clearing not yet regularized, it is not attachable. I already told you. If the FDR is kept as a collateral for a loan, it is not attachable. If FDR is kept as, there are two types of loans you can give against an FDR. FDR can be taken as a collateral security for some loan and you can give loan. The FDR can be taken as a prime security, you will give an VSL or OD. If the FDR is taken as a prime security, then on maturity, you have to adjust to the VSL. If the balance anything is there, you will send to the court. Okay. FDR is kept as collateral for a loan, not attachable. Against FDR, if VSL is given, balance in FDR after liability, it is attachable. Now you will attach it, but you will send the proceeds on maturity of the FDR. After adjusting to your VSL, balance you will send to the court if the money has to be sent to the court. Then the order is not applicable on foreign branches of the bank. It is applicable only to the Indian branches. So in the case of a partnership firm, if the order is in the name of the partnership firm, and the partnership firm and the partner's account, if any, are attachable. On the other hand, if the order is in the name of your partner, partnership account is not attachable, like your lien and write-off set-off. Then, this is very important. Funds in the name of the deceased customers and insolvent persons not attachable. So a person, you are having an SB account, so that person has died, you've already got the intimation that person is, after you get the information only, you got the intimation and you're noted in the FCR, in your flux cube or whatever you call it as, notepad that the customer deceased. Settlement of death claim is yet to take place because papers are not come, or nomination is not yet settled because nominee has not come. So on that time, if there is a garnishee order on the deceased person's name, you should not attach the garnishee order. You have to inform the court, the order has come, but the person is deceased as per our knowledge. So the money, after deceased persons mean money belongs to whom? The money belongs to the legal heirs, or if there is a nomination, money belongs to the nominee. You should not attach and send the money to the court. Similarly, in the case of an insolvent person, so in the case of an insolvent person, the money belongs to the official assigner or official receiver. It does not belong to anybody. So you should not attach. The money is available in the deceased person's account and the insolvent person's account under the garnishee order. Then OD/OCC accounts, unavailed limit is not attachable. If there is a credit balance in OD/OCC account, that is attachable, but unavailed limits in the OD/OCC account, if there is an unavailed portion, that is not attachable under the garnishee order. These are all the questions they are asking time and again. Check marked good for payment. For that amount of the check, it is not attachable. So some of you want to know what is a check marked good for payment. Earlier we had a concept, here also, that is now also maybe we may be having the concept. What is that? For example, let us assume I am having an account with you. I am having an SB account or current account with you. I am purchasing something from somebody that is from another place, from Delhi. I am having an account with you. I am purchasing some goods from somebody in Delhi. So I am giving a check to him. So, but he is not confident whether there is a balance in my account or not. So he will say, sir, I have a doubt whether you have a balance or not. I will send the goods to you. But if I present the check in clearing and the check is returned, what will happen? So this fellow will tell. So what I will tell, I will come to you. So, sir, in my account, there is a balance, 1 lakh balance is there. I am issuing this 50,000 rupees to that fellow, on Mr. X, because I am taking goods from him. So in the check back of it, you write, check marked good for payment of 50,000 rupees. So the moment you issue, you mark a check good for payment at the back of the check, you put the seal and write, check marked good for payment for 50,000. The moment you do it, that 50,000 rupees, you have to carve out of the balance and freeze in that account. You should not allow them to withdraw the money, because you are informed the other fellow through the check that you have kept the bank has informed the other fellow through this check that the customer's account 50,000 rupees I have earmarked for you. That is called check marked good for payment. If any checks are issued by the customer and you have marked good for payment by freezing that amount is not attachable under garnishee order. Okay, that these are all the accounts not attachable. Amount deposited after the order is received is not attachable. So I told you, when a garnishee order comes, you have to affix the date and time and freeze the account. So that is not freeze the account means debit freeze only you have to do. Credit freeze you need not do, because subsequent credits in the account, after the subsequent balances, you can pass the checks of the customer. The subsequent credit is sufficient for the subsequent debits. Okay. So garnish order, subsequent amount received after the receipt of the order is not attachable. Then safe deposit lockers and safe deposit articles are not attachable. Okay, they are not attachable because the banker customer relationship in the garnish order should be debtor creditor. Deposit account, credit balance in ODOCC accounts. Okay, safe deposit locker, what is the relationship? Bailor, lessor, lessee, bailey, bailor, safe deposit articles, isn't it? We saw in the first class. So that is not attachable. Then the relationship between bank and that is the relationship between bank and the court in the garnish order. We saw question number 7 or 8 in test paper 1. Many people are putting me, sir, what is the relationship? You tell me. In the case of a garnish order, bank is the trustee and the court is the beneficiary. So court has issued a garnish order. Court trusts the bank that the bank will not part with the money to the customer. Isn't it? So the bank is called the trustee and the court is called the beneficiary in the garnish order. What is the relationship of the bank with the judgment debtor? Debtor creditor. What is the relationship of the bank with the court? Bank is the trustee, court is the beneficiary. Okay. Now let us see the case studies. The idea, you will get a very, very, very clear idea now. Okay, sir. We will go. Sorry, I'll show the question paper. Okay. Now, question number 44. Question number 44. When the attachment order and garnish order comes together, which order has the preference? So, who issues the garnish order? The civil code issues the garnish order. Who issues the attachment order? The statutory authorities like Income Tax Department or Sales Tax Department or Customs Department. They issue the attachment order. Okay, when the garnish order and the attachment order come simultaneously, the attachment order has the preference as compared to the garnish order. Okay, that point you should keep in mind. So attachment order has the preference as compared to the garnish order. Okay, I told you in the garnish order, if the order is in the name of A and the account is in the name of A and B, you should not attach. What I told you, in the name of a garnish, in the case of a garnish order, if the account is in the name of A and deposit account in the name of A and B, you should not attach the A garnish order to the joint account of A and B. On the other hand, in the case of an attachment order, let us assume the joint account in the name of A and B, garnish order in the name of A. In that case, attachment order is the name of A. Sorry, again I repeat. Let us assume you have received an attachment order in the name of A. Deposit is a joint name of A and B. So what order you received? You received an attachment order. In the case of an attachment order in the name of one individual, and if it is a joint account with another individual, then 50% of that to be attached. That is the attachment order. But in the case of a garnish order, you should not attach. On the other hand, the account is the 3 names, A, B, C. Attachment order in the name of A, then 1/3 of that money you have to attach under the attachment order. So that is the difference between attachment order and garnish order. Okay, question number 45. Who is the garnishee in garnish order? Bank in which the judgment debtor has deposit account, bank in which the judgment creditor has the deposit account, bank in which court has deposit. None of these. I already told you X is the bank in the example and B, the judgment debtor is having deposit in bank X. So answer for question number 45 is A. Bank in which the judgment debtor has deposit account is called the garnishee. So question number 45 answer is A. Okay, then question number 46. The garnishee is also known as judgment creditor's debtor, judgment creditor's creditor, judgment debtor's debtor, court's debtor. So answer is C. All of you are aware that was we discussed. This question was asked last time. Okay, the garnishee is also known as judgment debtor's debtor. Question number 46, answer is C. Okay, question number 45, answer is answer is A. Question number 45, answer is A. Question number 46 is judgment debtor's debtor. Question number 46, answer is C. Okay, question number 47. Garnishi order is in the name of Mr. S. Account is in the name of S and Y. Whether the account of S and Y are to be attached. Attach 50% of the amount. Don't attach. Attach all the amount in the account and inform Mr. Y. Any of these options. See, I told you, if the Garnishi order in the name of A, yes, the joint account should not be attached. On the other hand, if it is an attachment order, 50% of the amount to be attached. Okay, the answer for question number 47 is do not attach. Question number 47, answer is do not attach. Question number 48. Mr. Ramesh deposited a check for 11 a.m. Deposited a check at 11 a.m. for discount. Okay, like that you may take it. Bank purchased this and allows credit to the SB account. Check discounting. I am explaining to you. The amount was 10,000. The check was presented in clearing. A Garnishi order was received in this account at 11:30 a.m. and at that time the amount was available in the account. Don't attach the amount as the check is not cleared. The amount is to be attached. See, discretion of the bank, none of these, none of the options given above. I told you, in the case of a check discounting, you have taken a credit decision. Once you have taken a credit decision and released the money to the customer's account, whether the check is returned or not returned, it is immaterial. So the money belongs to the customer. At that time, the check, that is the Garnishi order comes, the 10,000 rupees to be attached. On the other hand, if the check is sent for clearing, in that case, a shadow balance would have happened. At that time, you cannot attach the under the Garnishi order. So question for question number 48, this question option is B. Question number 48, option is B. This amount to be attached. This amount to be attached. Question number 49. Absolute Garnishi order is received in the name of your customer, Mr. X. At that time, Mr. X has clear balance of 2 crores in his SB account. So what order he received? Absolute Garnishi order in the name of Mr. X. At that time, Mr. X has clear balance of rupees 2 crores in his SB account. He is not having any liability with the bank. The order does not mention the amount. So 2 crores, absolute order. So 2 crores is having a balance. You receive an absolute Garnishi order. The order does not mention what is the amount to be attached. The order does not mention what is amount to be attached. And then there is no liability of Mr. A with you. So what he will do? The options are: this is not a proper order. Inform the court to send the order with amount. Take up with your circle office and inform the court. Remit the full amount to the court and inform your customer. Seek guidance from your customer as the amount is huge and the order is silent about the amount. So you should not see, you here the order is absolute. What you have to do? No amount is mentioned. You have to debit the customer's account, send the process to the court, then you have to inform the court. You should not allow the customer to withdraw the money without informing the court. In that case, the trustee-beneficiary relationship will be broken and bank will be called as a judgment debtor. Okay. So for question number 49, answer is C. So remit the full amount to the court and inform your customer. Question number 49, answer is C. Question number 50. If bank fails to implement the Garnishi order, this question they asked. If the bank fails to implement the Garnishi order, it is considered as, for example, Garnishi order has come without informing anybody. You inform the customer 2 crores, no, inform the customer he has withdrawn the money. So in that case, so you will, so the customer, who is the customer? He is a judgment debtor. Your customer is a judgment debtor. Am I correct? So inform the judgment debtor to withdraw the money. But 2 crores he has to pay to the court, but you allowed him to withdraw. Then the bank will be called as judgment debtor and you have to pay the 2 crores to the court. Okay, if bank fails to implement the Garnishi order, then bank will be considered as judgment debtor. The 2 crores money you have to pay from the bank, stop loss will take place. Okay, so bank will be called as a judgment debtor. In the case of an attachment order, that question is not here. I will tell you. In the case of what attachment order comes from whom? From the statutory authorities, like income tax authorities or sales tax authorities, etc. If you fail to implement that is attachment order. Why attachment order is coming? Because that fellow has not paid the tax. Okay, he is assessee in default. The fellow who is having account with you has not paid the tax to the government. He is called assessee in default. So when the attachment order comes, if you simply allow the customer to withdraw the money, then subsequently the attachment authorities come to know, then you will be called as the assessee in default and you will be asked to make good the amount. So if the garnishee order is not implemented by the bank will be called as a judgment debtor. If the income tax attachment order is not implemented by the bank will be called as the assessee in default. The bank will be called as the assessee in default. That is an extra question. Okay, question number 51. A garnishee order was served on XYZ Bank in the account of Mr. Sachin. It is an order nishi attaching a sum of rupees 1 lakh in the name of the customer. At the time of receipt of the order, Mr. Sachin had a current account with balance of 50,000, SB with 15,000 and OD with a debit balance of 5,000. So what is the net amount is coming? 50 plus 15, 65 minus 5, that is 60,000 is the net amount is coming. So OD with the debit balance. Okay, even this is the OD is whether overdue or not, nothing is mentioned. Okay, don't act on the order as it is only order nishi. Take up with RO. Send rupees 60,000 to the court after adjusting to OD. Inform the court about the balances in the account and also Mr. Sachin. At any cost, Mr. Sachin should not be informed by the bank as it amounts to breach of trust. What I told you, when the order nishi comes, you have to see what are all the balances. You have to adjust if you have any overdue. Then you have to freeze the credits, the debits in that account. You have to inform the court. You have to inform Mr. Sachin also. So what is the answer for this? It is only an order nishi. Question number 51, order nishi. Inform the court about the balances and also Mr. Sachin. So for question number 51, answer is D. Question number 51, answer is D. Question number 52. Mr. X maintains an SB account with a balance of 20,000, nominee being Mr. Y. On 14/5/2020, the branch receives the notice of death of Mr. X. On which day you received? Your account holder died. So on 14/5/2020, the account is having a nominee, Mr. Y. On 15/5/2020, a garnishee order absolute for rupees 15,000 is received in that account. When on 15/5, on 14/5 itself, you come to know your account holder has died. On 15/5, a garnishee order absolute for 15,000 is received on that account. On the same day, the nominee claims the amount. On the same day, garnishee order is coming, nominee is coming and standing, nominee is also claiming the money. The money is still available in the account. A. Settle the full amount to the nominee. B. Pay rupees 15,000 to the court and 5,000 to the nominee against stamped receipt. Settle the amount in priority of claim, that is on first come first served basis. I am not answering the question. Okay, here. So what I told you, in the case of a garnishee order comes in the name of the deceased person or insolvent person, the money is not attachable. I told you in the PowerPoint. So here, X maintains an SB account with 20,000. You have to settle the nomination for the entire 20,000 in favor of Mr. Y. Options are there. Settle the full amount in the name of the nominee. For question number 52, answer is A. For question number 52, answer is A. Question number 53. Okay, so this is here any good to you. If the bank fails to implement the attachment order, it is considered as assessee in default. If the bank fails to implement the attachment order, it is considered as assessee in default. Okay, then question number 54. We are discussing question number 54. Safe custody article is covered under which act? Safe custody article is covered under Indian Contract Act. So if they ask the question, you should not miss. Question number 54 we are discussing. Safe custody article is defined in Indian Contract Act. Okay, question number 55. Contract of insurance is a contract of. Question number 55. Contract of insurance is a contract of indemnity. Contract of insurance is a contract of indemnity, or it is also called a contract of utmost faith. Contract of insurance is a contract of indemnity, or it is also called a contract of utmost faith. Okay. The question number 56. A contract without a dash is void. Yesterday we discussed, okay? A contract without consideration is void. A contract, question number 56, a contract without consideration is void. Where it is defined in section 25 of Indian Contract Act. Yesterday we saw a contract without consideration is a void contract. It is defined in section 25 of Indian Contract Act. Question number 57. When a court appoints a guardian for a minor, he attains majority at the age of 18 years or 21 years. What are the different types of guardians we discussed? Natural guardian, testamentary guardian, and legal guardian. Natural guardian, you know. Testamentary guardian, guardian mentioned in the will of the natural guardians. So the legal guardian, the guardian appointed by the court is the legal guardian. Three types of guardian. Whomso, that is whether the minor is represented by a natural guardian, or whether the minor is represented by a testamentary guardian, or whether the minor is represented by a legal guardian, he will attain majority on attaining 18 years. Earlier, 15-20 years back, if the minor is having a legal guardian, he will attain majority after achieving 21 years only. Now that is not there. Whatever may be the type of guardian, the minor will attain majority at the age of 18 years. Question number 57, answer is 18 years. Question number 58. Yeah, minor attained majority on 1st April 2019. A check signed by his guardian, that is his father, dated 25th March 2019, before the minor attains majority, issued in favor of the college where he studies, comes for payment on 31st May 2019. Pass or return the check. What happened? When he has attained majority on 1st April. But when the check was dated on 25th March. Issued by whom? By his guardian. For what purpose the check is issued? Check is issued in favor of the school or college in which the minor was studying earlier. So when the school authorities presented the check, they presented the check on 31st May. Here what you have to say, what you have to see, when the check comes for payment, when the minor attained majority. Okay, so in between whatever thing you need not see. Minor attained majority on 1st April 2019. The check comes for payment on 31st May 2019. See, once the minor attains majority, further debits in the account is only with the authentication of the major who was minor earlier. So he has attained majority on 1st April. On 31st May, you should not pass the check, even if the check is dated 25th March signed by his guardian, because once the minor attains majority, the subsequent debits in the account is only by him, not by the guardian. So you have to return the check. So question number 58, answer is return the check, because in our SBI current account manual, which was there for 2 years back, they have mentioned there pass the check. But in the recent SBI account current account manual updated, they told you have to return the check. Okay, that is why this question I got put from there. Question number 58, answer is return the check. Question number 59. Okay, very important question. Now I told you about the guardian of a Muslim, that is a minor. So now I read the question. Question number 59. When the mother can be a guardian in respect of a Muslim minor girl. When the mother can be a guardian in respect of a Muslim minor girl. I told you who can be the guardian for a, that is Muslim minor, whether girl or boy. First, father. The second one is, that is will of the father. The third one is father's father. And the fourth one is will of the father's father. And the fifth one is legal guardian. Okay, so mother, on all these five, mother is not entering into, that is mother is not there, isn't it? But whether mother can be a guardian by any point of time for a Muslim girl or Muslim boy, yes. Suppose in the will of the father or father's father, if mother is mentioned as the guardian, then she will become the testamentary guardian. Similarly, if in the will or the father, they are not mentioned her as the guardian, but if the court appoints her as the guardian, then she will become the legal guardian. Mother can be a guardian by virtue of the testamentary guardian or legal guardian for a Muslim minor girl or minor boy, but she cannot be a natural guardian. Okay, you see the question. when the mother is a guardian in respect of a Muslim minor girl or minor boy, whatever it is. She can be a natural guardian, she can be a legal guardian, she can be a testamentary guardian, cannot be a guardian, B and C. What is B? She can be a legal guardian. She can be a testamentary guardian. For question number 59, option is B and C. So, yeah, for a Muslim minor, a mother will become a guardian because of testamentary guardian or because of legal guardian, but she cannot be the natural guardian. So, question number 59, answer is E. Question number 60. A person who writes a will is called a willer, executor, administrator, none of these. A person who writes a will is called testator. Testator. A person who writes a will is called testator. So option is not given. For question number 60, you have to mention as none of these. So who is a person who writes a will? He is called a testator. Okay. When a person dies testate, the succession appointed by the will is called. Yesterday I was talking to you. When a person dies testate means what? When a person dies testate means he has died after writing a will. He is called a testator, isn't it? When a person dies testate means he has written a will and he has died. When a person dies testate, the succession appointed by the will, that is the name of the person mentioned in the will, is called executor. Again, I repeat, a person who writes a will is called testator. A person who dies testate means a person who has written the will and died is called, that is, testator. So the person mentioned in the will, the person named in the will of the testator is called the executor. There may be one executor or more than one executor. Okay. So question number 61, the answer is executor. Question number 62. When a person dies intestate, that means what? He has not written any will. When a person dies testate, that means what? He has written a will and he has died. When a person dies intestate, dash can appoint a persons to look after the properties of the deceased by a letter of deed, dash. Suppose if a person has died without writing a will, then if the property is huge, if there is a dispute, then who can appoint a person to look after the property of the deceased person? Court will appoint the person. But through what the court will appoint? The court will give you a letter called letter of administration. Okay, so when a person dies intestate, court can appoint a person. First fill up the question number 62 we are seeing. First fill up the blanks is, when a person dies intestate, court can appoint a persons to look after the properties of the deceased by a letter of administration. So question number 62, answer is court. Second fill up the blanks is letter of administration. Question number 63. When a will got certified by the court, it is called probate. When a will got certified by the court, it is called probate. I told you yesterday, that is, we need not always get the will certified by the court. It is not mandatory. Like partnership registration is not mandatory. There is some cases only it is required. Some cases it is not mandatory. When a will got certified by a court, it is called probate. Question number 63, answer is probate. Question number 54. To open executor's account, banks to insist for, and for administrator's account, bank asks for. So who is an executor? Executor is appointed by a person who has died testate, isn't it? Who is an administrator? The person appointed by the court is called administrator. Okay. To open the executor's account, bank will ask for probate. What is probate? When a will certified by the court is called probate. To open an executor's account, banks will insist for probate, and to open an administrator's account, bank will ask for letter of administration. I told you, when a person dies intestate, court will appoint a person to look after the property. So they are called administrators. Okay. When a person, if you want to open an executor account, who is an executor? The account mentioned in the will. If you want to open an executor's account, you should ask for probate. What is probate? The will certified by the court. Then if you want to get account open for administrator, then you should ask for the letter of administration issued by the court authorities. So question number 64. To open executor's account, banks insist for probate, and for administrator's account, banks ask for letter of administration. Okay. Executors and administrators are dash for the legal heirs. Yesterday we saw nominees are the trustees for the legal heirs. Nominees are the trustees for the legal heirs. Even though legal heirs are there, you are giving the money to the nominee. So the nominee is receiving the money as the trustee for the legal heir. Suppose something goes wrong, if the court says give the money to the legal heir, then the nominee has to give the money to the legal heir. You will get the protection because you have settled the nomination as per the Nomination Act. No issue. Okay, so the nominee receives the money as a trustee for the legal heir. Similarly, executors and the administrators are the trustees for the legal heirs. So who is mentioned in the will is an executor, isn't it? There may be legal heir. Then similarly, administrator. So court will appoint somebody. There may be some legal heir. So executors and administrators are the trustees for the legal heir. These are all the questions they will ask in between in the examination. So executors and administrators are the trustees for the legal heir. We are discussing in depth the legal acts, okay? The legal matters with regard to general banking. Question number 66. When there are more than one executor or administrator in an account, let us assume the administrator may be more than one also. When there are more than one executors in an account, all of them to operate the account jointly. Yes, you cannot permit, when you open an executor's account with a probate, if there are more than an executor, then the operation condition should be jointly only. Either or survivor, number one or survivor, either is farmer or survivor is not permitted. Executors have to operate the account jointly. Both of them have to sign. That is the condition you have to open for the executor's account based on the probate. If there is one executor, you permit. If more than one executor, all executors to join to issue check or operate the account. Answer is true. Question number 66, answer is true. Question number 67. Executors and that is question number 68. Okay. Executors and administrators are appointed as per which act? Executors and administrators are appointed as per Indian Succession Act. Executors and administrators, question number 67 we are discussing. Executors and administrators are appointed as per Indian Succession Act. Question number 67, Indian Succession Act. Yesterday we saw crime settlement of that is missing person is settled under as per which act? Indian Evidence Act. So crime settlement of missing persons is settled as per Indian Evidence Act. Who is a missing person? So he has not to be seen. FIR is filed. From the date of FIR, 7 years is over. He is not traceable. Then court will give an order. Consider him as a missing person. It is like a death certificate. Based on that, we will be settling the death claim. Okay, so the settlement of death claim for a missing person is as per the Indian Evidence Act. Whereas in the case of an executors or administrators are appointed as per the Indian Succession Act. So question number 67, answer is Indian Succession Act. Question number 68. An executor and administrator, whether they can appoint an agent. I was telling you when we discussing the partnership account, all the partners join together, they can give the authority to a third partner or to somebody else to operate the account who need not be a partner. But in the case of an executor and administrator, they cannot give the authority to anybody to operate the account. If they are single, they have to operate. If they are joined, both of them jointly only to operate the account. So question number 68, that is executor and administrator can appoint an agent. Answer is false. They cannot appoint an agent. They have to operate the account jointly. Question number 69, instructions for stop payment of a check can be given by any one executor and administrator. What I told you in the partnership firm, any partner can give stop payment, isn't it? Similarly, instructions for stop payment of a check can be given by any one executor or administrator. True. See, in the case of a partnership, so they can give the authority to anybody to operate the account. But in the case of an executors and administrators, they only have to operate the account. Okay. But if there are two executors, so both have to join and that is issue the check. Similarly, two administrators both has to join and issue the check. In between, suppose suddenly one executor says stop payment, you have to stop payment the check. So the question number 68, instructions for stop payment of a check can be given by any one executor. In the partnership also we saw any one partner can make stop payment of the check. Here also any one executor or administrator can give stop payment. You have to, the bank has to accept it. So question number 69, true. Okay, question number 69, answer is true. Question number 70. A minor is not competent to contract. All of you are aware, isn't it? The minor is not, this question they ask. Maybe 2 to 3 they asked once, I think. That is, a minor is not competent to contract. Still, banks allow them to open and operate the account. This is as per which act? Minor cannot enter into contract. But still bank allow them. You are permitting, no? If it is 10 years, 12 years, minor student, minor that is non-student, 12 years, 10 years, you are permitting, isn't it? So a minor is not competent to contract. Still bank allow them to open an account and operate. This is as per which act? This is as per section 26 of Negotiable Instrument Act. Question number 70. Minor is not competent to contract, but still bank allow them to open an account and operate, SB account and operate. If it's a minor student in our bank, we permit 10 years and above. If it is a minor non-student, we permit if he is 12 years and above, isn't it? For a minor non-student, we will not give debit card. For a minor student self-operated account, we will give a debit card. That is your debit card policy. Okay. Now, a minor is not competent to contract. Still banks allow them to open and operate the account. This is as per which act? Section 26 of Negotiable Instrument Act. Question number 70. Answer is section 26 of Negotiable Instrument Act. Question number 71. Karta in HUF can delegate the authority to operate the account to whom he can operate. Karta can delegate, whereas administrators and executors cannot delegate. Partners can delegate, isn't it? So similarly, a Karta in an HUF account can delegate the authority to operate the account to one or more co-partners. He can give to one or more co-partners, or he can delegate the authority to third party who is not a co-partner at all. Here, point number C, to the senior most co-partner I have given, it should be only to the senior most co-partner. The word only is missing here. When I give you the answer sheet, I will mention that. So options are one or more co-partners can delegate to a third party only to the senior most co-partner. Karta cannot delegate A and B. Friends, Karta can delegate the authority to anybody who is not a co-partner. He can delegate the authority to any one co-partner or two co-partners. Okay, so not once here, point number C is only to the most. No, he need not delegate the authority only to the senior most co-partner. So only if the word comes, C is not the correct answer. So the answer is A and B. So option for question number 71, option is E. So he can delegate the authority to anyone or more co-partners, or he can delegate the authority even to a third party. For question number 71, answer is E, A and B. Question number 72. A co-partner who is not given authority to operate the account cannot give stop payment instruction for a check issued by the Karta. True or false? A co-partner who is not given the authority to operate the account cannot give stop payment instruction for a check issued by the Karta. True. You see partnership, a partner who is not authorized to operate the account, he can give stop payment instruction. Isn't it? Here, a co-partner who is not given the authority to operate the account cannot give stop payment instruction. Only the co-partner, if he has the authority to operate the account, he only can give the stop payment instruction. Answer is, yes, answer is true. For question number 72, answer is true. A co-partner who is not given the authority to operate the account cannot give stop payment instruction for a check issued by Karta. True. Okay, if he has given the authority, he can give, but if he has not given the authority, he cannot give stop payment. Then Harish and Mahinder, we are seeing question number 73. Harish and Mahinder are the two trustees, and Harish is only authorized to operate the account as per the trust deed. There are two trustees. With regard to the trust account, we will go by the trust deed. What is mentioned in the trust deed, based on the trust deed only, operations in the trust account will be permitted. If something is silent in the trust deed, then court has to give an authority who will be permitted to operate the account. Okay, so here Harish and Mahinder are the two trustees, and Harish is only to authorized to operate the account as per the trust deed. Harish issues a check. Mahinder gives stop payment. Will you accept it? No. If there are two trustees, and if as per the trust deed, if only one trustee is permitted to operate the account, he only will operate the account. He only will give stop payment. The other trustee cannot do anything, so you will not accept it. So the law varies depending upon whether it is a partnership, whether it is an executor's account, whether it is an administrator's account, whether it is an HUF, or whether it is a trust. This is called the legal aspects of banking. Okay, Harish and Mahinder are the two trustees, and Harish is only to authorized to operate the account as per the trust deed. Harish issues a check. Mahinder gives stop payment. Will you accept it? No, we will not accept it. Question number 74. Mr. A sole trustee, died on 25th April. A check dated 10th April, signed by him, comes for payment on 2nd May. Pass the check, return the check, pass if permitted in the trust deed, none of these. Friends, there are two types of, that is, trust account. One is sole trustee, there is only one trustee in that account. There may be another trust account where more than one trustee will be there. In the case of a sole trustee account, he is the only trustee. Okay, no other trustee. In the case of a sole trustee account, so after the death of the trustee, so till somebody is appointed by the court, checks will come for payment. The checks issued by him. So again, I repeat, in the case of a sole trustee account, no trustees are there. So you would have issued certain checks, you would have died. Subsequent to his death, some checks will come. So whether to permit operations debit in the account or not, still another trustee is appointed by the court. It depends upon the date of the check. Here you see, if the check is dated before his death, then you can pass the check. If the check is dated after his death, you cannot pass the check. This is for the sole trustee. What is for the sole trustee? For the sole trustee, if a check comes for payment after his death, before some other trustees are appointed by the court, then you have to see the date of the check. In the examination, if they mention the date of the check, you have to see what is the date of the check. If the date of the check is before his death, you can pass the sole trustee's account. You can debit the account. Otherwise, you should not debit the account. What about more than one trustee? If there is more than one trustee in the account, if one authorized trustee issues the check, but he dies, then what will happen to the trust? Whether you will pass the account or not, you have to see the trust deed. More than one trustee, you have to see the trust deed. You should not see the date of the check, etc., etc. You have to see the trust deed. If the trust deed provides for another person to operate the account, then he will give you the authority to permit you to debit the account based on the old check. If the trust deed is silent about subsequent operation, then you have to advise the surviving trustees to get a court order. Till such time, the check has to be returned. Okay, two types of account. Sole trustee account, after his death, you have to see the date of the check. So in the case of a more than one trustee, you have to see, that is, after the death, who will authorize to operate the account. You have to get their consent and you can pass the check. If no such trust deed is silent about it, you have to request them to get the court order to subsequently who will operate the account. Till such time, the check has to be returned only. So here you see the question number 74. Mr. A sole trustee, died on 25th April. A check dated 10th April, signed by him, comes for payment on 2nd May. So what is the date of the check? So he died on 25th April. Check is dated 10th April. It comes for payment on 2nd May. Forget about when it comes for payment. So the check dated is 10th April. The date of the check is prior to his death. So in this case, you have to pass the check. Options is there? Yes, option is there. For question number 74, option is A. So they may ask in one, some other may this question. Simply they will ask, a check signed by the sole trustee who has died comes for payment, pass or return. They will not mention the date at all. Again, I repeat. A check signed by a sole trustee who has died comes for payment. All other things are in order, whether you will pass the check or not. In that case, you have to mention pass the check. Okay, a check signed by the sole trustee comes for payment. All other things are in order, whether you will pass the check or not, you have to mention pass the check. On the other hand, if the date of the check is given in the case of a sole trustee, you have to compare what is the date of the check, whether it is issued before his death, after his death. Accordingly, you have to say. In this case, you will pass the check. Question number 74, answer is A. Question number 75. Your branch receives a letter from Mr. A, the sole trustee of a trust account, authorizing Mr. B to operate the account during his absence out of India. What he will do? What the sole trustee has done? The sole trustee is authorizing another person to operate the account. Friends, keep in mind that trustees cannot delegate. Executors and administrators cannot delegate. Partners can delegate. HUF can delegate. Okay, your NND agent cannot delegate another NND agent to collect the money in his absence. Until otherwise he is sick, you will give, or he is leaving the station, your branch manager may give temporary permission. So he cannot, that is, he is already an agent, they cannot appoint another agent. So what is the question here? Your branch receives a letter from Mr. A, the sole trustee of a trust account, authorizing Mr. B to operate the account during his absence out of India. What you will do? Accept. Accept only if it is notarized. Accept only if it is registered. None of these. So answer for question number 75 is none of these. What is the correct answer? A trustee cannot delegate. Then you may ask the question, sir, he is leaving out of India. What to do operation in the account? Then he has to get a court order who will operate the account. Okay, so a sole trustee, he has to get a court order as to who will operate the account in his absence when he leaves India. So here, accept no, accept only if it is notarized, that is also no, accept only if it is registered, that is also no. None of these. The correct answer is don't accept. Okay, don't accept because a trustee cannot delegate. Question number 76. Your branch is a check issued by a trustee trust account. You come to know that he has become insolvent. Who has become insolvent? The trustee has become insolvent. Friends, before that I will tell you, when you come to know that is your account holder has died, when you come to know your account holder has become insolvent, when you come to know that your account holder has become insane, when you come to know your account holder has died, when you come to know your account holder has become insolvent, when you come to know your account holder has become insane, no further debits in the account to be permitted. Whether it's a single account or joint account, one of them becomes in the joint account, one of them has become there is insolvent or insane or died. In the case of a trust account, the trustee has died. Whether you will permit operation in the account. That is the question. What I told you, in the case of an individual account, when that fellow dies or insane or insolvent, you should not permit further operations in the account. Yesterday we saw in the partnership account also, when one of the partners have died, if it is a debit balance, then you should not further permit operation until otherwise you get a balance confirmation letter from the legal heirs of that deceased partner. Similarly here, in a trust account, if the trustee has issued a check, but the trustee has become insolvent. So what is the question? Your branch receives a check issued by a trustee on the trust account. You come to know that he has become insolvent. That this check has to be passed if all other things are in order for the reason. So this check to be passed. The trustee has become insolvent. The trustee has not become insolvent. Who has become insolvent? The trustee has become insolvent. The money is not the trustee's money. It is a trust money. It is not the trustee's money, isn't it? So here you have to pass the check. What reason? Trustee is alive. Balance is available in the account. It is a check issued on the trust property. None of these. So you have to pass a check when a trustee becomes insolvent. You have to pass a check if the check is issued on the trust account for the reason it is a check issued on the trust property. So, on the other hand, if the trustee is having in his individual account, he becomes insolvent. If a check comes for payment in that account, that you should not pass, because individual account, he has become insolvent. Here it is a trust account, trust has not become insolvent, the trustee has become insolvent. You have to pass the check for the reason. Question number 76, answer is C. It is a check issued on the trust property. Because of that, you have to pass. Question number 77. Whether a minor or insolvent person can be agent, whether a minor can be a nominee, whether an insolvent person can be a nominee, yes, yesterday we saw. But a minor cannot appoint a nominee. We also saw an insolvent person cannot appoint a nominee. Similarly, a minor or insolvent person can be agents, but they cannot appoint agents. A minor or insolvent person, they can be agents, but they cannot appoint agents. Okay, they can be agent, yes. Question number 77, answer is E. They can be nominees, but they cannot nominate. Similarly, they can be agents, but they cannot appoint agents. Question number 77, answer is yes. Question number 78. Whether a check signed by an agent can be passed even after his death when all other things are in order. What we read in the company's account, a check signed by the authorized signature of the company can be paid after his death also, isn't it? Because it is in a representative capacity. Similarly, the question is without any date, no dates or nothing is mentioned. When the dates given only, you have to further probe into the question here. Whether a check signed by an agent can be passed even after his death when all other things in order. As long as nothing has happened to the account holder, and nothing is mentioned about the date of the check, you can pass the check. Who has died here? Agent only has died. Whether they told anything about the date of the check, they have not told anything. All other things in order. That means what? Balance is available in the account, check is in order, your account holder is also alive. As long as nothing has happened to your account holder, balance is in their account, and the date of the check is not given. Who has died? The agent has died. You can pass the check. Okay, question number 78, answer is you can pass the check. These type of questions, in between 2-3 questions they are asking. Okay, a check signed by an agent, question number 78, a check signed by an agent can be passed even after his death when all other things in order. Yes, all other things are in order. Okay, question number 71. Here they are given the date of the check. Like sole trustee, you have to see here now. So question number 79, a check signed by an agent. The date of the check is 10th April. The agent died on 1st April. The check comes for payment on 12th April. Here you have to see what is the date of check and what is the date he has died. What is the date of the check? 10th April. When he has died? 1st April. If the check is dated subsequent to his death, so he has died on 1st April, the date of the check is 10th April, you should not pass the check. So what is the previous question? The agent died. Then nothing is mentioned, you say you pass the check. Here comes to, when you come to the agent died, but the check date is given, you have to see whether the agent has died, the check is subsequently his date of death or before the date of death. Checks dated before his date of death can be passed. Checks dated after the date of his death should not be passed. So question number 79, the date of the check is 10th April, the agent died on 1st April, do not pass the check. So on the other hand, if the check is dated 30th March, will you pass? When he has died on 1st April. What is the date of the check? 30th March. You will pass the check. So question number 79, answer is you will pass the check. First portion, you will not pass the check. Second portion, you will pass the check. Question number 80. Mr. X appoints an agent, Mr. Y, on 1st January. So who is the agent of Mr. X? Mr. Y, when he was appointed on 1st January. However, on 17th January, the agent's appointment cancelled by Mr. X. 17th January, what happened? He told your appointment is cancelled and gives a letter to the bank. Sir, I appointed Mr. X. Now I am cancelling his appointment. You received 3 checks on 31st December. 10th January and 20th January for payment on 21st January. You please see here, he has appointed him as an agent on 1st January, but 17th January he has withdrawn the agencyship. He has given a letter to you also. Then what happened on 21st January, that is after 17th January, on 21st January, you received 3 checks dated 31st December, 10th January and 20th January for payment on 21st January. What is your position? Friends, 17th December, you received a letter from the account holder stating that the power of attorney given to Mr. Y is withdrawn. That means it is like a stop payment order. So whatever may be the date of the check, you should not pass the check. You should not see when he is appointed as the agent, when the agencyship has come down, etc., etc. One check you can pass, one check you should not pass. No. The moment you get a letter from the account holder that the agencyship is terminated, then you have to return all the checks irrespective of the date signed by the agent. In the letter, if the account holder has mentioned, if the agent has signed a check dated so and so favoring so, that check only you pass, on that check you can pass. But for this question, your position is return all the 3 checks. Because once the account holder gives a letter stating that the agencyship is withdrawn, that is equivalent to stop payment instruction. You should not permit or you should not pass the check. Okay, question number 80. Question number 81. A check issued by an agent comes for payment. You see this question? A check issued by the agent comes for payment. You come to know that the principal died. Who has died? Your account holder has died. The date of the check is 1st November and the date of the death is only 8th November. Pass or return the check. Friends, here I am telling, seeing the date of the check, whether to pass or not, it is only for the agent. If it is the account holder, if he is your account holder, the moment you come to know he has died, he has become insolvent, he has become insane, you do not have any authority to debit his account, whether it is signed by him or whether it is signed by his agent, whether agent is alive or not, immaterial. Once you come to know that your account holder has died, your account holder has become insane, or your account holder has become insolvent, once you come to know, irrespective of the date of the check, you should not debit the account. So here what is this? A check issued by the agent. Nothing has happened to the agent. But you come to know the account holder has died. Don't bother about the date of the check. You simply mention return the check. The date of the check to be seen only for the agent. Okay, here you need not see the date. You mention return the check. Question number 81, answer is return the check. Question number 82. SB account operation condition either or survivor. So this question was asked. SB account operation condition either or survivor. Check signed by A. Alterations made in the check authenticated by B. So who has signed the check? A. Some changes, amount is changed. Who has authenticated it? B has authenticated it. Whether to pass the check or do not pass the check. Pass the check since it is either or survivor. Return the check. Get consent of A and pass, refer to RO. So when a check is with alterations come, one person has issued the check, another person has made the alteration, you should get a suspicion. Otherwise, if you pass the check without getting the consent of the other person, then you have passed the check negligently. You will not get protection under Section 89 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. So here, by simply seeing either or survivor, you should not say pass since it is either or survivor. Here, your answer for question number 82, the correct answer is get the consent of A and pass the check. Get the consent of A and pass the check. If that option is not there, only return is there, you have to mention return. Since the option is there, get the consent of A and pass the check. So this option, C, you have to give here. If this option is not there, you have to mention return the check. Okay, sir. Question number 82, answer is C. Question number 83. Locker operated by either or survivor. A reports key is lost. B comes with the key after A left to operate the locker. Permit since operation conditions either or survivor. Do not permit. Permit with the consent of A, none of these. Here also, permit with the consent of A. What A has come and told? Key is lost. After he left, B is coming to operate the locker. That means there is something wrong there over there. So you can permit further operations in the account, in the locker, with the consent of A. Okay, otherwise banker will amount to negligence. So for question number 83, answer is C. Question number 83, answer is C. Question number 84, which crossing is not mentioned in the Negotiable Instrument Act? Yesterday itself I told you which crossing. There are three types of crossing: general crossing, special crossing, and account payee crossing. There are three types of crossing. Yesterday I told you: general crossing, special crossing, account payee crossing. What is the feature of a general crossing? Two transverse parallel lines with or without the word. What is the feature of a that is special crossing? Name of a bank with or without lines. What is the feature of a account payee crossing? The word account payee with or without the lines. Account payee crossing is not defined in the Negotiable Instrument Act. Yesterday we saw, isn't it? So what is the question? Which crossing is not mentioned in the Negotiable Instrument Act? For question number 84, the answer is C, account payee crossing. Question number 85. You come to know that the payee of a check has become insolvent. Check comes for payment. Who has become insolvent? There are three parties to a check. No, who are all the three parties? You would have read in the CIB: drawer, payee, drawee. Who is the drawer? The account holder who has issued the check. Who is the payee? The person whose name is mentioned in the check is the payee. Who is the drawee? The bank branch in which the account holder is maintaining the account is called the drawee. Who are all the three parties? Drawer, who issues the check. Who is the payee? The name of the person mentioned in the check is the payee. Who is the drawee? The bank in which the account holder is having the account is called the drawee. Okay. Now what has happened? You come to know that the payee of a check has become insolvent. Check comes for payment. So your account holder has issued a check. Let us assume I am your account holder. I have issued a check favoring Mr. X. So as L. Jagannath, I have signed the check. I am having account in your branch. I have issued a check favoring Mr. X. So the check comes in clearing to you. The check favoring Mr. X comes to you in clearing. Before that, you come to know that the X has become insolvent, not your account holder. If the account holder comes to know, you come to know he has become insolvent, insane, or he has died, you will not pass the check. But what you have come to know, nothing you come to know about the account holder, but you have come to know that the X has become insolvent. The payee has become insolvent. The question is, check comes for payment. Pass the check as drawer is not insolvent. Return the check. Discretion of the bank. Get consent from drawer and pass. None of these. Whether you will pass the check or return the check, what you will do? Whether the payee or drawer, whomsoever has become insolvent, and if you come to know, you should not pass the check. Why? When the payee, you may understand, drawer nothing has happened, why you should worry about it? If the payee becomes insolvent, then the money should go to the official receiver of the payee. When a person becomes insolvent, who appoints another person? Court appoints a person to receive the money. The person appointed by the court is called official receiver or official assignee. So, even though the payee becomes insolvent, you should return the check. The check return memo, what reason you will mention? Payee's title requires confirmation. So, even though the payee becomes insolvent, you have to return the check with the narration in the check return memo. Payee's title requires confirmation. If the drawer has become insolvent, you will return the check with the reason drawer's title requires confirmation. Okay, so even though he is a payee, once you come to know that his payee has become insolvent, you have to return the check. Answer for question number 83, 85. Answer is B. Suppose if they ask what reason, you will mention in the check return memo, payee's title requires confirmation. Okay, question number 86. Aadhaar has how many alpha numerals? 12, 10, 8 other than the option. So the answer is other than the option, because Aadhaar has only numerals. Aadhaar does not have alpha numbers. It has 12 numbers. It does not have alpha. Only PAN has 10 alpha numerals. So Aadhaar has how many alpha numerals? Answer is none other than the option. Question number 87. For creating EMT, the property to be in the notified area, non-notified area, rural area, in the command area of the branch, none of these. Again, I repeat. For creating EMT, the property to be in notified area, non-notified area, then rural area, in the command area of the branch, none of these. See, the EMT to be put through in a notified area. Am I correct, sir? The EMT to be put through in a notified area. The property can be in any area. The property need not be in notified area, but the branch should be in the notified area. To put through an EMT, EMT can be put through only a notified area. Who notifies the notified area? State government notifies us the notified area. You cannot put the EMT in a non-notified area, but a property can be in a notified area. Property can be in a non-notified area. So what is the answer for this? So the question is, for creating EMT, the property to be in notified area, no. Non-notified area, no. Both non-notified or this one. Rural area, no. In the command area, it can be. Answer is none of these. So it can be notified area. So if they given the option A, B, C, and D, all the four, then you have to tick all the four. Here they are given none of these. You have to tick none of these. So it is not necessary. It should be only in notified area. Not necessary. It should be only non-notified area, rural, etc. It can be in any area. So the question for 87 answer is none of these. Question number 88. Undertaking by the borrower not to sell or create charge on a particular property without the consent of the bank. So borrower gives this, I am giving a property to you, but EMT is also not put through, but I will not create any charge on that particular asset. This is called, question number 88, this is called negative lien. Question number 88, answer is negative lien. Okay, Negative, negative lien, L-I-E-N. Question number 89. Succession to the estate of the deceased person based on the will of the deceased person is called. What do you mean by will? Who writes the will? Testator. Okay, we were telling. So succession to the estate of the deceased means what? A person has written a will. There he has mentioned who will be there. That is, who will be taking the succession of the property. Succession to the estate of the deceased person based on the will of the deceased person is called testamentary succession. Question number 89, answer is C. Succession to the estate of the deceased person based on the will of the deceased person is called testamentary succession. Question number 89, answer is C. Question number 90. When a guarantor on payment of all dues of the principal debtor, he gets the right of. So there is a guarantor, there is a principal loan borrower. So you are asking the borrower to pay the money. He is not paying, but now you have sent a notice to the guarantor. Guarantor repays all the loan. Then that means after the, so you are the creditor. Keep in mind, bank is the creditor, main debtor is there, your borrower, guarantor is there. Who is the creditor? Bank is the creditor. Who is the debtor? The main borrower is the debtor. The third person is the guarantor. So you are asking, you creditor asking the debtor is not paying, then you send a notice to the guarantor, guarantor repays the money. So now after the guarantor repays the money, he enters into the, he steps into the shoes of the creditor. Who is the creditor? Bank is the creditor, isn't it? So what the guarantor has done, the guarantor has paid all the money of the borrower. Once he paid all the money of the borrower, the guarantor will get the right of the creditor. The guarantor will get the right of the creditor. That right is called a right of subrogation. So whether it is there in the option, it is not there. Question number 90. When a guarantor on payment of all dues of the principal debtor, he gets the right of. So none of these. Question number 90. The answer is none of these. The correct answer is he gets the right of subrogation. SUBROGATION. Right of subrogation. Question number 90. Answer is none of these. Question number 91. We'll see up to 100 questions. We'll call it a day. Question number 91. Okay. Now, question number 91. Credit information companies. Credit information companies are created under which act? Credit information companies are created under which act? Credit Information Companies Act 2005. Okay, Credit Information Companies Act 2005, under which they have been they have been what do you say? They have been created. There are 4 credit information companies, which you already know. I also told you a bank should be member of all the 4 credit information companies. Okay, question number 92. In a check, the amount in words is called legal amount. In a check, question number 92, in a check, the amount in word is called as a legal amount and the amount in figure is called courtesy amount. Okay, amount in word is called the legal amount and the amount in figure is called courtesy, courtesy. Amount in figure is called the courtesy amount as per CTS 2010 guidelines of RBI. Question number 93. What is not relevant with regard to passing of a check with a date 31st June 2019 when all other things are in order? See here, in the calendar, there is no date called 31st June. Am I correct, sir? Okay. So this is called a check bearing non-existence date. So if the check is dated 31st September, non-existence date. If a check bearing 31st November, it is a non-existence date. Similarly, a check bearing a date 31st June is called a check bearing non-existence date. So whether you can pass the check, you can pass the check provided it is presented on 30th June and 30th June is a working day. Again, I repeat, a check bearing a non-existence date can be passed on the last day of the month, provided the last day is a working day. If last day is not a working day, it should be passed in the subsequent working days. So that you got the point. A check bearing a non-existence date to be passed on the last day of the month if the last day is the working day. Here 31st June. This check can be passed on 30th June if 30th June is a working day. Otherwise, you can pass only 1st July and subsequently. Okay. What is the question? What is not relevant with regard to passing of a check with a date 31st June 2019 when all other things are in order? It is a negative question. You have to choose the wrong answer. I was telling you. Can be passed on 30th June 2019 if 30th June is a working day. Correct. Okay. So that is which is not relevant. So that is relevant. You should not take. Next point. If 30th June is a holiday, it can be passed on 29th June if it is a working day. That is not relevant. Third point, if 30th June is a holiday, it can be passed on or after 1st July. That is relevant. You should not take it. It will become stale on 30th September. That is also relevant. So what is the question? What is not relevant? So if 30th June is a holiday, it cannot be passed on 29th June. So point number B is the wrong statement. So what is not relevant? You have to choose for question number 93, answer B. Okay, correct. Question number 94. Account payee and not negotiable crossing are the directions of the drawer to the which bank? It is to the collecting banker. Question number 94. Answer is collecting banker. Okay, you have to collect the check for your account holder. So that is why they say account payee crossing and not negotiable crossing are the directions to the collecting banker. Question number 95. The balance in the account is 10,000. A check for rupees 10,000 favoring Mr. X and 10 checks each for 1,000 each favoring various individuals come in clearing at the same time. Which one to be passed? Here you have to see. So whenever is having one balance and various checks are coming in the account. First, what you have to see whether any check is payable to a statutory authority. For example, if a check is an income tax authority, if a check is an electricity board, if the check is for some other purpose, which are all required for his day-to-day living or whatever you say, statutory authority. So first you have to see whether the check is to be paid to a statutory authority. If it is to be paid, you have to pass the check if balance is there. Subsequent checks, you have to take a call. Here what they have told, and what is the second one? The first one is whether who is the payee. If the payee is a statutory authority, you have to pass the check to the statutory authority only. Second point. Suppose if the checks are coming, that is both the checks are same amount. But balance is available only for one check. Which check you will pass? That is the next question. Both two checks are coming, but balance in the amount is available only for one check. Which check you will pass? Then you have to see the date of the check. The check is having that is older date to be passed because that check will become stale soon. Okay, when the checks for the same date or the balance is only for one check, then the check is having that is older date to be passed first. Then so checks are the checks are sorry, same amount different dates. Checks for the older dated to be passed. Checks for same amount, dates are the same. Checks are for the same amount and the dates are the same. Which check you will pass? Then you will go to by the serial number of the check. Check bearing the older serial order to be passed. That is the banking law. What practice we are doing, that may be something different. This is the banking law. We are discussing only banking law matters. Now here in this case, a check for 10,000 rupees is received. It is favoring Mr. X, and there is 10 checks 1,000 favoring various individuals comes in clearing at the same time. So 10,000 is available. One check is 10,000, another check is 10,000 each, 10 checks. Here there is no statutory authority. They have not mentioned anything about the date, etc., etc. Now, which check you will pass, which check, whether you will pass the 10,000 rupees check or you will pass the 10 checks. As per law, so after these the 11 checks, you will pass the check of small value, the 10 checks of 1,000 rupees each, because by doing so, you are taking care of your account holders large number of liabilities. So one check is 10,000 to one fellow, then 10 checks, 10 fellows, you take care of large number of liability of your account holder. So here you will pass, which you want to be passed, 10,000 rupees check, no, 10 checks. So for question number 95, answer is B. Question number 95, answer is B. Question number 96. Balance in the account is 5,000. Two checks of 5,000 each favoring Mr. X and Mrs. X comes for payment at the same time on 10th November. The account was opened on 1st October. The check favoring Mrs. X bears the date 25th September before the date of opening the account, and the other check bears the date 10th October. Both the checks are in order. As a paying banker, what is your position? Return both the checks, pass the check dated pass the check at the discretion of the bank, pass the check dated 25th September, pass the check dated 10th October. Here in between these two, which is the date, older date, checks dated 25th September is the older date. Then your doubt is, sir, account is opened only on 10th November. That is not your botheration. Okay, he has opened the account on 10th November, but he can put the date as 25th September. What you have to see on the date when the check comes to you for payment, whether it is a stale check or not. That's all only you have to see. So you need not worry about when he has opened the account, when he has put the date, that and all immaterial. So you don't worry about the date. You have to see only whether it is a stale check or a post-dated check when it comes for you for payment. When the check has come, the one check dated 25th September, one check dated 10th October, they come for payment on 10th November. So they are not post-dated checks, they are not stale checks, but balance is available only 5,000. You will check the older date check. You will pass the check dated 25th September. Question number 96, answer is C. Question number 96, answer is C. Question number 97. When the alterations is not visible, even after careful examination of a check, the paying banker gets protection for making payment of a materially altered uncrossed check as per provisions of. Friends, banker is not supposed to pay a materially altered check. Okay, you will see the normal light. You should also supposed to see on the ultraviolet lamp. Okay, so you have to take all precautions. After taking all precautions, if the material alteration is found out, the banker is not responsible, the paying banker. But the signature of the account holder, if it is forged, so whether seeing ultraviolet or etc., you will not be barred. So banker is responsible. All other alterations, when you take a normal, that is prudence, and in spite of that it is not visible, you paid the check, banker will get a protection under section 89 of NI Act. Question number 97, answer is C, under section 89 of the NI Act. Question number 98. A customer approaches you on 10th April A customer approaches you on 10th April to accept a stop payment of a check issued by him favoring the income tax authorities dated 15th April, the amount of the check being rupees 1 lakh. At the time of giving the stop payment letter, the balance in the account is only rupees 1,000. What happened? Customer approaches you on 10th April to accept a stop payment of a check. Okay, favoring IT authorities. Date, what is the date of the check? 15th April. So the check amount is 1 lakh. At the time of giving the stop payment letter, the balance in the account is only 1,000. Whether to accept the stop payment or not, accept, don't accept, or there is no sufficient balance to cover the check, don't accept, or the check is in favor of the income tax and no sufficient balance in the account, none of these. Friends, at the time of giving the stop payment, so you have to see whether the check is issued for that account, whether the account holder's the signature tallies, then you have to accept the stop payment. There is no question of whether balance is there in the account or not, because subsequently an RTGS credit may come. You need not worry about the balance in that account. Okay, balance is only 1,000. The stop payment instruction of the check is 1 lakh. You need not worry. The balance you need not see. If all other things are in order, you accept the stop payment. Question number 98, answer is A. Question number 99. Question number 99. So we'll see one more question. We'll call it a day. In truncated instruments, whose duty is verify the material alteration in a check? What is a truncated check? Customer drops the check in the check drop box. You take the check and scan and send it for clearing through your LPC, isn't it? That is a truncated check. The physical check is not going to the paying bank. The physical check is maintained with you only. Whose responsibility to find out any material alteration? It is the duty of the collecting banker. If you do not do that, there is verify the check before scanning. What all the there is a section 131 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. The collecting banker gets protection under section 131, even if there is some fraud in that check. So what are all the conditions? The check should be a crossed account, crossed check. You should be collected for the account holder. What is the third point? The check should have been collected without negligence. What do you mean by without negligence? When a check is given for collection, you have to see whether it is a newly opened account. And you have to see whether the check belongs to some other branch. Somebody will come and deposit here. You do not know the account. You have to scan through the account. Then only you have to scan and send. Because if something has happened in the check, if you have not done the properly, if there is a fraud in the check, the collecting banker will be responsible. He will not get protection under section 131. He is responsible for conversion that we have discussed earlier. So in a truncated instrument, whose duty is verify the material alteration? It is the duty of the collecting bank. Question number 99, answer is A. Question number 100. So with that, we are stopping today. The drawer of a check, he has issued a check, but he forgot to write the date. The drawer of a check issued a check and he has forgot to fill in the date. Such a check is called invalid check, irregular check, impossible check, inchoate check. This is called inchoate instrument. We have discussed that. Under which section the inchoate instrument is defined? Under section 20 of Negotiable Instrument Act. So for question number 100, answer is D. This is defined under section 20 of that is Negotiable Instrument Act. Okay, friends, it is already time 9:15. That is good night. We'll meet in some other time.